Okay, let's talk about Thursday night.
I don't think it's
I feel like you're a little
it's fun.
thrown off right now.
I am.
I'll take
in a great
over.
way.
I'll take over.
Take the
All
lead,
right,
Bridget.
You are a host.
I got something good for you.
Yeah.
180. You know I like numbers. 180th regular season game in series history between the Commanders and Eagles, and get this, first time ever on a Thursday night.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
That is surprising. Maybe it's because Washington hasn't been relevant enough.
180 games?
Although TNF also wasn't always like a showpiece for the best team, so it's a little random. A stat between these two teams that really shocked me was this is the first time they've played each other where both teams are at least one game over 500 since 2000.
First time they're playing 4 games over 500 since 96.
Well, mine was better because it's like one
better.
game was more, surprising, and there's only
fine.
a 4-year difference there. So
Eagles have won the past 5 of 6. The only one
Okay.
the Commanders won was in primetime.
Go.
I am really.
Come on, what do you got?
Go.
What do you got, numbers boy?
I'm not a numbers boy,
Okay.
but
All right,
actually-
Commanders have the highest scoring offense since 91. Last time they were in an NFC championship game and Super Bowl. They also have the longest active championship game drought.
Okay, so I do have some numbers that
Okay.
top all your numbers. Since the Eagles bye, their defense is number 1 in the NFL in success rate. And this is since week 6, which is a 5-week sample. It's pretty big. Number 1 in the NFL in EPA per play. And number 1 in the NFL in explosive play rate allowed by far. And I use that last stat to point out that, like, Vic Fangio's scheme is Vic Fangioing. Like, that's not a verb, but I want it to be a verb. Everything that he wants to do, putting a cover over the top of a defense, I think matching their zones where they're passing off receivers it's not like a sexy thing to talk about, but the communication between the cornerbacks and the safeties where there's no breakdowns and there's just not a lot of really open receivers. Yes, they've played a lot of bad teams in that stretch, and that's a huge part of those numbers, but that Bengals game was kind of the Vic Fangio blueprint of what to do against great offenses. The Bengals actually moved the ball really effectively the first couple drives, but he made them work for it, like these 7-8 play drives. And he's getting supported by an explosive offense. That's what the Eagles have. And then suddenly in the second half, like the Bengals needed those points. You got a couple turnovers. You made a couple plays. You were on your P's and Q's. And that's the best any defense has played against the Bengals in a while. And so everything is coming together. And it all happened when they put that white boy in at slot corner and safety, Cooper DeJean. We thought he was going to be the greatest white cornerback in the last 30 years. And he might be, but he's actually doing the thing that everyone just like reflexively did in draft prep. They're like, oh, you're saying he has to play inside? Like, that's actually like kind of racist because he is explosive enough that he should be an outside corner as a pro. Like, this is not your normal like white guy, but he is playing in the slot and he's freaking amazing. Like, he has a chance to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I think him getting back there with Mitchell and obviously Darius Slay's playing well, like that's really what's changed in this defense.
He plays the star position.
That was a lot.
Yeah,
That was a lot.
I feel like my hair is like blown backward
I
now.
don't know what to say.
He plays the star role. It's a hybrid safety corner role in this coaching defensive family, right? And what that does, which some people predicted he would be doing at the beginning of the year. Some people. He's making a difference there because that role operates to be able to pass off different coverages, but it doesn't always have to be dictated by what the rest of the coverage rules are around in that sort of shell or that match down, that match zone, like closing umbrella that they play. And really it creates like, so he could play traditional slot corner, right? Or he can be a creative player like with mathematical advantages based on where he's moving and sort of the floating between that corner and safety position and disguising other coverages. When, teams did this with certain other players, in this coaching family, the goal is to either make him an unavoidable player. So all the coverages are dictating toward you having to go, and his matchup dictates toward you having to go his direction where he is in place to make a play on the ball, or forcing almost a counter leverage from the offense because they see where he is and they think they can predict kind of what his job is on that play. And then so in that sense, Vic Fangio is then dictating to the offense other areas of the field that they must put the ball toward. So I think it's a real credit to what we know about this defense, which is that it grows over time, it develops over time. But I also think it's a real credit, and I've said their names a couple of times, but those assistant coaches that Vic Fangio specifically brought with him to this staff, Christian Parker, who had worked with him before, and Joe Casper, they coach corners and they coach safeties, and those dudes, including the young rookies, and Quinyon Mitchell certainly is having an outstanding season, are ready to go. And they're ready to play, and they're smart, and they know playing a match zone is really hard. You have to know all the opponent tendencies and how different concepts layer out and how space is dispersed on the field. The way they're playing this right now, they really understand how to negotiate that space and constrict down around what offenses are trying to do.
And know how to coach these guys up, because Quinyon Mitchell wasn't in that pure, he's going to be the outside corner playing every snap role right away. He was actually on the inside and was kind of working his way up. And DeJean wasn't even starting the first month of the season. And you can say, well, maybe he should have been in there earlier. No, however, right. But even when he was back, he was pretty much ready to go for a number of weeks, and they weren't playing him yet, and they were getting antsy, but their development plan for him was perfect. And it's not a surprise. People there were really excited. You said you thought like they're coming off their toughest game of the year, Commanders.
Not toughest, worst offensive performance.
I hear that, and you're right.
But
and yet,
what? What, Greg? Period. End of sentence. Full stop.
I would just say it was against a really good defense, and they still got 27 points and had a couple of really nice drives. So that's what happens when you play good defense, and this is another good one. So I'm really curious to see what they look like in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the Jaden Daniels in that offense is turning the ball over less at like such a historic rate. They've only had one. I don't think they've had a turnover on offense in 5 games. Yes, they turned it over on a muff punt on Sunday, but that was special teams. This is must-watch television on Thursday night. NFC East, old school rival battle. Like, this is what you want. I wish I was in Philly for this game, because the Commanders' DC area is different this time around because they're so excited. Like, people, when those teams are doing well, you can't get people to stop talking, and it is fun. And this potentially could have so much weight for playoff implications, and I can't wait for Thursday night, baby.
If you want to go cover that game, Mike, I could cover your news shift in between. Something like that. No.
This is going to be great quarterback play on both sides. I mean, we mentioned at the top of the show,
hey, Greg,
Jalen Hurts.
Everybody listening, if you'd rather me host the show and Greg just, I don't know, take a hike, let me know.
Whoa.
I'm available.
It's like a coup attempt live. I love it. But don't listen to her, please.
I feel like the back of my skull is getting burned off and the front of my skull is getting burned off.
Wait, what were you going to say about quarterback play? Sorry, Jalen Hurts.
I just think it's
good.
It's good. Both of them are good.
I think, he's playing really, really efficient football. He's playing, especially, he's making smarter throws than earlier this season. Earlier in the year, through the first chunk of the season, he attempted 12 passes with less than a 25% completion probability. Per Next Gen, only completed one of those passes. If you watch the tape of his last couple games, not only is he, since the I think it was week 7 versus the Giants, he has completed 70% or more of his passes, but he's making really, really smart decisions, and he's creating, which he is so gifted at when given the opportunity. Both touchdowns against Dallas came when he was working out of structure, throwing on the move. That throw to Johnny Wilson, former Arizona State Sun Devil who transferred, like they all have. He worked out of structure to
not a bitter former Sun Devil.
Now that we're talking about Jaden Daniels here,
okay,
and he really escaped the pressure really, really nicely, and then he put the ball in just the perfect spot for Johnny Wilson.
I've struggled with how to view Jalen Hurts' season, but I've kind of come to the point that they are big play merchants. He makes enough fantastic plays that it makes up for them being a little like up and down, drive to drive. That Cowboys game was a perfect example. Like, they put up a ton of points, they had big plays, but you watch the first half of that game, he held the ball and had 5 sacks, and he's held the ball a lot, but he's ultimately not made many mistakes. They are a boom or bust offense that can really run the ball. We're going to see if their renaissance on defense is real against this Commanders offense, and their pass rushers haven't gotten enough credit. Like the Jalen Carter second-year leap everyone was hoping for, it's happening even if the stats aren't all there. Nolan Smith has had a second-year leap too, and I just think they're more talented. I think the Jaden Daniels offensive line held up pretty well against Pittsburgh last week. It'll be a big test. I'm leaning Eagles in this game. You were skeptically looking at me.
The show within the show, actually.
I don't know
Every
what's
time I
happening.
look to my left, my show within the show is every time I look to my left and I see
It's just my face.
Bridget's
Okay,
face
Don't
that's true.
insult me.
specifically when Greg talks. It's like,
I'm taking it all in.
It's art.
I'm a great listener.
it's art.
Maybe that's not good for the podcast. I'm not talking enough. But look, I'm a great listener. I'm not going to pick because that's not what I do as a reporter.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay. Wow.
But-
Real deal.
Jordan, who are you going with?
I'm going to pick the Commanders.
Okay.
But-
Good. I like
But
that.
it
split.
is interesting. I could see this happening either way for
Yeah.
either team.
I hope
love
it's a close last
Yeah.
second.
and I
crazy
love that
finish.
they're at like the apex of their powers right now, respectively. I know that was a tough loss against the Steelers. I think the Steelers really took away what Jaden likes to do on the
Yeah.
perimeter very, very well, unlike
took away
most
his
teams
legs,
can.
too.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be it. Jordan Mailata will likely be back from injury. A couple of sneaky injuries to watch on either side. Dallas Goddard is not practicing. Darius Slay is not practicing. Devontae Smith is not practicing. Technically, practices are like a mock-up right now
I think
because
they
it's
all
a short.
finished last week's game.
Devontae Smith did not.
Oh.
So that's a hamstring too. So that's the one that I maybe look at the most. And then on the other side, Marshawn Lattimore still not practicing, but I could actually see him pushing to come back this Thursday. There's a picture of him and Dan Quinn like game planning, walking across the field together, floating around
Ooh.
Twitter, which I really appreciated seeing.
I'm so glad you brought him up before we go because this game, in games like this, but I think this game and then the next Eagles game, and I would maybe pick the Commanders if it was in Washington. I think that's how close it is, but I'm going to take the home team. This is why they got Marshawn Lattimore. That when you're matching up against Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown specifically, like they just didn't have someone that could do that. St. Juste has played pretty well. Sandra still is a rookie, undersized, who we thought would have to play inside, who's played pretty well on the outside, but those are mismatches. And if you get the real deal Lattimore against A.J. Brown, that changes how the entire rest of the coverage will go. Your boy Frankie Louvu's been active. Dante Fowler's played pretty well lately. Johnny Newton, like their defense has gotten better, but I think that it's players, not plays. And I think the Eagles just got a lot of players.